Hello and welcome to the first tutorial lesson on research methods and methodology. Here we are going to learn everything we need to know about how to conduct research. Research has become an integral aspect of our education system, and it's even a requirement for the award of your undergraduate degree, and also master's degree. We happen to do thesis, and that is also a requirement for the MPhil program and all of that. And so we are going to learn everything that we need to know when conducting research. But the first thing we are going to talk about is academic writing. And basically, the most important thing that we want to talk about in academic writing is grammar. And so we would like to start this lesson by inducing you to think about your choice of words. Okay, you need to identify the various word classes, and back then in our early parts of our education, we used to refer to them as parts of speech. So they are basically nouns, and we need to learn how to use them, when to capitalize the initial words and when not to, and pronouns, so that you do not use ambiguous kind of pronouns. And we are going to look at an example of ambiguous form of pronouns so that we shall appreciate what it means to think about our choice of words or the word classes that we use in research. And so you also need to be circumspect about using these word classes or parts of speech. Verbs are there. We have adjectives, adverbs, conjunctions, and prepositions, and all these are very important, and you need to understand their usage or the syntax in using them in academic writing. And so we ask ourselves, why is grammar important? And so we like to look at an example of why we need to think about our choice of words. Let's look at this particular statement. The stated purpose of this process was to capture the image without disturbing the subject. It was not very clear, so it was not obvious whether it had been achieved. Now, in this statement, there is a little problem. Now, the problem is that we have referred to it, we have used it, which is a pronoun, but we do not know what the it actually refers to. We do not know whether it refers to the stated purpose in the first sentence, or it refers to the process mentioned in the first sentence, or the image in the first sentence. So this is an example of what we call an ambiguous pronoun, and we do not know what the it actually refers to. So if we have to reconstruct this sentence, then a better sentence structure might be: the stated purpose of this process was to capture the image without disturbing the subject. As the image was not very clear, so it was not obvious whether it had been achieved. So in such a case, we know that the it, which is used in the second sentence, actually refers to the image. So be sure not to use ambiguous kind of pronouns. And so do not create doubts about who or what a pronoun actually refers to. And so that is why we began this lesson by looking at choice of word classes, when and how to use them, and the syntax underlying them. So you need to understand all these word classes. Another example that we might also consider is that we know that verbs describe an action. Now, let's look at this particular statement. I sorted the samples according to size. This particular statement is made in the active speech, and this describes the researcher herself performing that particular action. Now, in contrast to this statement, the samples were sorted according to size is devoid of any personalization. This does not describe the researcher herself conducting the work or performing the action, but rather it describes the action being performed. So we need to avoid using personalizations. Do not personalize actions. Do not say, I administered questionnaire to the respondents, but rather you should say, questionnaires were administered to respondents to test them on so and so. So these are some of the things that we need to take into consideration. So in traditional research, we make use of the passive voice and not to personalize any action. You also need to think about your sentences. Make sure your sentences are complete. And what does it mean to have a complete sentence? We must have a subject, a verb, and an object. So let's consider this example. Ghana celebrates Independence Day. This is a complete sentence structure because Ghana is the subject, celebrate is the verb, Independence Day is the object. And so this is a complete sentence. But let's look at this particular example. Ghana's Independence Day. Now here in this particular statement, the statement is devoid of a verb. There is no verb in the second statement, so it only makes it a phrase. That's the difference between a sentence and a phrase. So with a sentence, there is a verb that separates the subject from the object, but it links it together to form a complete sentence structure. But where there is no verb, then it only makes it a phrase. So also try to write in paragraphs, and you have to organize your paragraph in such a way that we have the lead paragraph, middle, and the concluding paragraph. All right. So the lead actually is what normally referred to as the topic sentence, and the middle section will actually explain what the topic sentence is all about, and the conclusion will also usher the end of the paragraph, and you can now begin a new paragraph. So you should organize your paragraphs in such a way that it shows coherence. And you also need to take into consideration your choice of punctuations. Make sure you have correctly used your full stop, your comma, your colon. All the punctuations are very necessary. You need to take them into consideration when dealing with academic writing. And also be sure to write formally. You should avoid contractions such as shouldn't, should be written in full, should not. Can't should be written as cannot. So you should avoid contractions in academic writing. And we also live in an era where social media and WhatsApp is influencing our choice of words. So, for instance, you would like to write there and you spell it as DE, and that is a problem. And if you bring these things into research, they actually go against you in terms of grammatical, we normally call them grammatical errors. So, you need to also avoid the usage of casual words. And there are other tips that we might also want to consider in academic writing. And one of them is that you need to write concisely and with precision. And so, what it means is that you need to just write in simple, plain language and always be on to point. Do not try to overuse your vocabulary. This is not a time to impress the examiner as to your language, your proficiency in your language level. So write in simple, plain language and always write for a purpose. And we will understand this as we delve deeper into our lessons. And so, writing for a purpose, you must ensure that what you write is actually reflective of your research objectives, your statement of the problem, and all those kind of things that make up the research. And then also, you need to proofread. So, for instance, you might have finished writing on chapter one. You have to go through and see whether you have not made any mistakes, you have not used any ambiguous pronouns, your word classes have been used in the correct way they are supposed to be used. And so these are tips that I would like to leave you with for academic writing. And so the next lesson, we shall look at how to choose a topic. And so this brings us to the end of this lesson. And I hope you found this useful. Thank you and have a nice day.